The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. Crazy packed show tonight. If you came in late, then you're just in time. So I just got here. Sorry about that. My apologies. Wasn't trying to do that. Don't get all huffy with me. I don't want you to be like, I'm starting to feel like people are judging me. Feeling very judged. Very, very judged. Very judged. I mean, maybe not very, very judged, but mildly judged. Not as judged as this guy right here, which I saw this. I was like, my God, people have to live with souls like this. Look at this. You're going to like this. You're going to like this. Very short.
She was probably, I'm sorry, can you stop breathing so loud, honey? He's like, breathe quietly. She was probably, I'm sorry, can you stop breathing so loud, honey? He's like, breathe quietly. She was
Unbelievable. There are souls like this that actually exist. I have to retract everything I said about people being born good. I have to change everything I thought, everything I understood about the universe for the first 53 years of my life. It just basically goes right out the window with that video clip right there. Look at his face. Oh my God. Caption on this was great also. Caption on this was, wonder whatever happened to her. He looks like he wants to, he's like, oh my God, I'm waiting for my time. My time is coming. My time is coming. Yours is coming to an end. He does not look like he's very happy with her. Not at all. I saw that. I was like, that's great. That's great. That's so good. How did I not share that with you? So that was the first thing I wanted to share with you, because that's what I do. All right. So I'm torn. I think I'm going to save Tucker. Putting Tucker, I think I'm going to shove him to the end. First thing to start off with is Fani. I think Fani is the best because Fani, there's always so much developing around Fani. There's so much developing Fani. So much developing with Big Fat Fani. Big Fat Fani. Richard Kostovsky becoming a member of YouTube. Wise call on your part, becoming a member of the following. It is the fastest growing following on this channel. It is. It's not, that's because it's not at all a cult. Not at all a cult type of cult. Not at all. Not at all. So welcome, new follower, Richard Kostovsky. Grab your hoe. There's plenty of uniforms in the back. Not tracksuits. They're not mandatory. No longer mandatory. That's right. They're not, they were never mandatory. Excuse me. Pardon me. What was I thinking? Never mandatory. Never mandatory. No mandatory tracksuits for anyone. For anyone. It's totally involuntary. Some people they like tracksuits, but not mandatory at all. At all. Because it's not at all a cult. Type of cult. Setting a bad example, being late from your tunnels. I apologize. In fairness, I did spaces. I did over an hour on locals. And then as soon as I finished locals, I stayed right here at this seat putting together this show and wrapped up, taking care of finishing my research and my links and everything like that. And then making the thumbnail and getting all that up by like 9. I haven't even eaten. So I feel as if I'm dedicating everything I can to this show. After that, whatever happens, happens. I'm not a leader, so I can be late because I'm not the leader, in case Richard was confused about this. This is the way some people are. Some people, not mentioning any names of people who are confused, but I am not the leader of any sort of group or and non-cult, not at all cult type of cult thing. Let's check out Big Fanny. Let's check out her developing story. It gets better and better. So she's dealing with this. She's dealing with so much, this poor woman. Dealing with this. Oh, I know what there's one thing I was looking for. I was like, and then I forgot to look for it. It's related to the Spanish story. I'm gonna have to find it. But so as a district attorney, she has to go to commissioners of Fulton County for appropriations. If you're not wondering what appropriations are, it just means basically signing off on sending money. That's what appropriations are. Just a fancy name for like allowance. Okay? That's what appropriations are. That your local Congress, be federal, state, whatever, that they appropriate funds for you, give you your allowance. She wants a raise of $4 to $5 million. Apparently, her request for a raise is not coming without certain strings attached, because the commissioners, the board of commissioners who oversee her appropriations and any increases or raise hikes, they're starting to get a little prickly. It's they're entering their new fiscal year, and they're having problems trying to figure out the fiscal year for 2024 as it relates to the district attorney's office. Check this out. You're going to enjoy this.
Lots of public comment today about our district attorney. I know she's asking for roughly $4 to $5 million added to her budget. I'm not exactly sure what tranche that is in. I did meet with her last month, and I'm thankful that she agreed to meet with me, or asked to meet with me, because
Thankful.
I believe in having conversation. I'm trying to come into this with an open mind with the departments that we fund. So I'm thankful that we did get a meeting, but transparency was not there. And I asked her the very questions that were in this video.
Lack of transparency from Fani Willis. That means Daddy's not going to be happy.
Very lengthy filing by this attorney this week.
The lengthy filing from the attorney is the attorney for one of Trump's co-defendants, basically alleging that there's all sorts of shenanigans happening between Fani and her purported boyfriend, who she's going on long trips with, paying him a lot of money, and also the fact that she had appropriated from this agency right here a whole bunch of money after COVID, and seems to not to, because she had a backlog of cases, and seems to invest it all in just one brand new case that she decided to file.
I've never met this attorney, never talked to this attorney.
Nathan Wade.
But as I've skimmed through it, the allegations are frightening. I've asked numerous times as to why hiring special counsel hasn't come through us.
Because it's supposed to be approved by them. That's part of what came up in the filing. And they never bothered doing that. She never bothered doing that.
Our attorney, Sujo, has been gracious with me and patient with me in explaining the legal aspect as to why she doesn't have to come through us. And
Because he has TDS also.
there are some disagreements, but
With other attorneys saying he's an idiot.
either way, this filing is shocking. The accusations are shocking. The potential of misallocation of county funds that were given to her in 2021, 2022, and this last year. I believe we need some transparency as a commissioner.
Ruh-roh. Transparency is the one thing that slimy freaks don't like.
Asked for transparency. I asked her how much this election interference case was costing the county.
It seems like a reasonable question. You know, what's the whole bill here? You're going after Trump. It's seeming like it's like a little costly here. So what's this costing our county? I mean, we got all these investigators and attorneys and overhead, and it's just, how much is this costing us?
the answer I got was that Lady Justice has no price.
Oh yeah, Lady Justice has no price. The sky's the limit for Lady Justice. I don't know. It's apparently Lady Justice only cares about one particular defendant, but that's what Lady Justice cares about. And she got no price. It's no price. Apparently there is a price. But the price is the sky's the limit on what the price is. Lady Justice ain't got no price. What you talking about, Willis? Lady Justice. Well, I guess if you're not the one footing the bill, Lady Justice got no price. But like, you know, at the end of your big fat meal here, big fat Fanny, it's the bill's coming to us. You're sending us the bill. You're the one sitting here and dining with Lady Justice and all, and you're ordering the caviar and the filet mignon and this really expensive champagne and wine bottles from 60 years ago. And then you come to us and you're like, how much does this whole thing cost? Lady Justice has no price. No price. There's no price for Lady Justice. How dare you ask me about Lady Justice? How dare you ask for a bill to know what the bill's going to be? Who do you think you are? The hubris. Oh, you know why? Because she's a messenger from God. She's on a mission from God. The journey is hard. Child, the journey is hard. The journey is hard. The struggle is real. The struggle is so real, and the journey is hard, and people coming after her. Child, you don't even know. You don't even know how the struggle is real. Which apparently is why she needs to take trips to the Caribbean with her special prosecutor, because the journey is hard. And so is he.
And I wasn't given any amounts. I believe that as commissioners, we need to know how much this is costing us. Well, we're looking at spending $2 billion on a jail. Well, we have people dying in our jail because they aren't getting their indictments, and we have a court backlog. I think the citizens of this county need to know how much is being spent and how much resources are being diverted, not only for her office, but closing down the street for multiple weeks at a time,
Ooh.
having sheriffs on every corner
Mm-mm.
being paid to guard the street.
Mm.
People are being told to work from home. There are a lot of costs associated with that. And I believe that the citizens of Fulton, the taxpayers of Fulton County, need the right to know. And those inmates that are sitting in jail and their families.
They're just waiting to be prosecuted, but Fanny's she's busy whining and dining with Lady Justice.
Families need the right to know that. Thirdly, when I asked her about the Nathan R. Wade expenditures in particular, I didn't get an answer. I was told that I'm just picking on him because he's black.
Oh! Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, you're just picking on him because he black. That's what it is. The journey is hard. Oh, you're just picking on him because he's black. Obviously, not because you're paying him more than actual experts in RICO cases, or that, you know, his allegations that he's paying for trips for you. Little self-dealing going on there when you never even came to us and asked us to hire him. A lot of different questions we got going on here.
And I don't really care. Honestly, I've never met him. I have nothing against him.
So now but she knew when she said that I'd have to sit here saying, no, I'm not racist. No, I don't care if he's black. No. Wielding that card like a freaking sword. Just shing, 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 shing. You're a fruit and she a ninja.
And I think the citizens, the taxpayers need some clarification, some clarity on that if we are going to provide her a larger budget.
Have you providing her with any budget? Larger budget.
I just wanted to kind of get that out in the open. I'm hoping that you guys can assist us in giving us some clarification, some transparency, and not only for us, but for the people that are concerned out there. Thank you.
And it's not just what's her name? It's this woman's name. I knew her name. I saw it elsewhere. But it's not just the commissioners who are concerned. Not just the commissioners who are all concerned about what the hell is happening here. No, indeed, some of the citizens of Fulton County coming to the commissioners meeting themselves and raising this issue. Yeah. Let's check this out. So this comes courtesy of, what's your name, sir? What's your name again? Black and White Network. He seems like a fairly based individual. And he brought a clip that Benny Johnson had shared. I couldn't find it from Benny Johnson. I actually ended up on Benny Johnson's timeline on Twitter, and I was struggling to find it. So I was just like, heck it, I'm just going to share this because it's here. So let's hear from this fine citizen of Fulton County complaining to the commissioners about what the hell is happening with Fani.
Special prosecutor, yeah. So that being said, guys, let's go and watch this.
Good morning, Commissioners. Derek Blassingame. It is a pleasure and an honor to address you all today.
Go for it, Garrett.
Some of you all have made the comment this morning on my way in that he's done, he's through, it's over. Well, I want to let you know that Derek Blassingame, I'm done with Fulton County fumbling our elections. I'm done with the gross mismanagement of our taxpayer dollars by the Fulton County Democrats on this body.
Ooh, raising issues about the election.
I'm disgusted at the information that is coming out of the district attorney's office as a taxpayer. I am done with most of your silence at the DA's apparent love affair with the special prosecutor and gross mismanagement of taxpayers' dollars to pursue what appears to be a frivolous lawsuit based off of partisan politics.
Whoa!
Apparently, guys like me need to court Fulton County female executives if we want a free ride at all paid expense.
Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, no, you didn't.
Wow.
Apparently, we need to pursue Natalie Hall and Fani Willis, or maybe the executives in other departments, if we want a full ride and full pay. The DA appears to be trying to protect past elections, but upon information and belief, she's trying to interfere with future elections by trying to convict a candidate before the general election.
Get him. Get him. Get him. He's obviously another one of those racists.
I'm requesting a financial audit to be done by the county auditor of the district attorney's office immediately. There is no way that you get more money when you're spending money, allegedly, for unnecessary and frivolous purposes. Also, these judges need to hire a lobbyist instead of grandstanding this board with these mediocre public relations stunts. Magistrate Court still needs a systemic boost and an IT transformation that's been achieved by the Superior Court clerk. It needs to be pulled together.
15 seconds.
Thank you. Finally, I'm urging you to appoint Julie Adams to the Board of Registration and Elections without delay. And we need somebody that's transparent, that's open, and that can be open-minded to all concerns and can address the people's needs. I'm also want that audit of the DA's office immediately.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, it's pretty funny. It was pretty funny. So good job there, Garrett Blassingame. Good job indeed. Dropping fire. Dropping fire. I always like to see that. See, that's the American process right there. That's the American process. And if you think that that's the end of her issues, before I get to super chats, I want to share one more development here in the life and saga of Fani Willis. Life and saga, get you all up to date on things happening with her. Got this report coming out of Fox 5 I-Team Investigates.
Emails obtained by the Fox 5 I team shed new light on claims of racism made by Fulton DA Fani Willis.
Oh, no, she didn't. Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did.
In response to criticism of how she's handling the election interference case. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Russ Spencer.
I'm Courtney Bryant. Willis has already lashed out publicly at critics of her decision to hire a special prosecutor with limited felony trial experience. A man court filings claim she is also dating. Let's bring in Fox 5 I team reporter Randy Travis. And Randy, these emails suggest...
Isn't Randy Travis a singer? I know he's a country singer, right? Randy Travis? He should be. He's got to be a country singer, Randy Travis. There's got to be. There's got to be.
This is not the first time she's suggested she's being singled out for being a black woman.
That's right, Courtney. Russ, the emails are largely between Willis's office and Trump defense attorney Steve Sadow, but they were included in a group email to the legal teams of all 15 remaining defendants. They were sent 2 days after one of those defendants filed a motion accusing Willis of having a romantic relationship with one of her top prosecutors.
God, wasn't it them that attacked this lawyer of impeccable credentials?
Impeccable credentials. Impeccable. Nothing having to do with Rico, but impeccable credentials.
The black man I chose has been a judge more than 10 years.
So?
Run a private practice more than 20.
That's not anything.
This was DA Fani Willis January 14th, days after accusations surfaced in court filings that she paid Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade at least $660,000 to head up the Trump investigation, while at the same time allegedly vacationing together on...
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Delta Air there. We got Delta Air. And him paying Nathan J. Wade, paying for tickets for Fani Willis. Ooh, this doesn't look good. To Caribbean? That's Royal Caribbean Cruise. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Trips to California and the Caribbean. So far, her only explanation is to talk about race.
Well, that's a pretty good explanation. That, you know, I'm stealing all this money, but you're racist for noticing it.
Some will never see a black man as qualified, no matter his achievements.
But according to emails obtained by the...
It's not even about his achievements. It's about the fact that he's spending his money on you, on cruises with you.
Fox 5 I team, Willis has also used race when talking to defense attorneys. With a January 8th motions deadline fast approaching, Trump attorney Steve Sadow repeatedly emailed asking whether the DA's office had a certain document that had not been turned over for discovery. At one point on December 27th, he wrote in all caps, "Please respond to my emails below." After admitting she deemed some of the emails not worthy of a response, Willis's executive district attorney, Daisha Young, responded January 10th. "We are both aware, especially as an African-American woman."
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my. You're setting African and women. First of all, it's black. And second of all, you're setting black women back by falling falsely onto a race card. It's actually a racist move. Racist against black people.
Some find it difficult to treat us respectfully. Willis herself also weighed in. In the legal community and the world at large, some people will never be able to respect African Americans and or women as their equal and counterpart.
Not if you're corrupt. Not if you don't follow the rules like everyone else is obligated to follow. When people use race as a sword, they are damaging all racial relations, all of them, selfishly, grossly, disgusting.
That is a burden you do not experience. Further, some are so used
because the journey is hard. Oh, so hard. The journey is hard.
To doing it, they are not even aware they are doing it.
Struggle is real.
While others are intentional in their continued disrespect.
No, I am intentional in my continued disrespect because you're basically trying to use racism as a sword instead of as a shield, and that's gross.
It just seems so incredibly inappropriate to go to sort of the nuclear option of saying you're a racist and you don't respect women and those kinds of things.
Manny Aurora represented Kenneth Chesborough, one of the 4 defendants in the case who already took plea deals.
Being a jerk doesn't make you racist or demeaning of women or any of these negative terms that you've seen. And
Sato had no comment about the emails. That same day, he responded to Willis by writing, "No defense counsel has treated you or your prosecutors in a disrespectful or condescending manner. The relationship among counsel in our case has nothing to do with race or gender, nor should it." As for Nathan Wade, Aurora believes a special prosecutor should step down, no matter his race.
I would just like to see a clean trial. And unfortunately, around Trump world, nothing ever seems to be clean. But now these prosecutors are feeding into it. It's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy of idiocy.
A self-fulfilling prophecy of idiocy, he says. Well, the DA's office had no comment on the email exchange. The deadline to respond in court to the conflict of interest allegations is February 2nd, and that is next week.
Yeah, just another point of interest in this long saga, Randy.
Just keep coming.
Seems like new developments every single day.
Absolutely.
All right. Randy, thanks.
Yeah,
So there you go. There you go. There you go. Complaining about racism a little bit more. Why not? Why not? You got nothing, scream racist. Drop Barracuda says you put in so much work to bring us content and entertainment. You can keep on digging all you want, my honest. Thank you so much, Drop. You're too kind. Oh, and I got to drop this here for Krabby T. Girth. That clip is the first clip. The first clip, which if you came late, you should go back and watch it. It's the first 90 seconds of the stream. That clip reminds me of my ex. She used to say she hated that thing I do, that breathing in and out and in and out. Yeah. Yeah, I think we all heard it. We all heard it. I get it sometimes too. Why are you breathing? I don't know. I've been doing it for a while. It's a bad habit I picked up as a kid. What do you want from me? Stop the breathing. Y'all be nice. Fanny's gigolo is I'm sure he is pricey. So Fanny doesn't have transparency. I see. I see what you did there. They're saying she's saying that they're not transparent because they're black, because that's just not racist. It's weirdly racist and going into dark humor. That's true. Jesus Freak says, Ray, Raro, Ray, smart. Drop Barracuda. The tone of his voice tells me he's not going away unoppressed due to racism. No, you were wrong about that. And you read him wrong. Garrett Blasingame was awesome. Is the conflict that he's screwing both sides? I guess so. Law of self-defense, Branker. Yes, it's Trump's fault that Fannie presents as an utterly corrupt prosecutor because he's a racist. Everyone who questions her is a racist. You want to know why I bill so high? When I'm dining here with Lady Justice, and Lady Justice has no price. She got no price. You want to sit here and question me when you should know that Lady Justice had got no price? The only reason you're questioning me is either because I'm black or because I'm a woman. That's obviously what's happening here. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. God. The hubris of these bitches. Unbelievable. All right. So, and finally, with this story here, finally. Make sure we got this right. I got this. We covered it. I think we're good. We're good. I'm gonna wrap up my Fanny. I'm gonna wrap my Fanny stories up. Wrap up that Fanny. Just wrap it up. I think we've seen enough of Fanny being exposed. So I think we're good for now. Tell Lady Justice that the man needs to pay bill. Yeah, seriously. Okay. So we covered that story. Next, we need to start talking about Civil War, because Civil War is brewing. Oh my, is it brewing? It is brewing. All right. We're going to watch. Where do I want to start? We're going to start with this. I'm going to start with an interview of Ken Paxton. How old is this? It was 8 hours ago? Yeah, we'll start with that. I haven't watched all this. I've watched clips from this interview, but we're going to be watching this 13-minute clip of Benny Johnson, who's been doing really remarkable work. I highly recommend you follow him. He's been doing really great work. So This is his interview of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. These scales ain't going to balance themselves. Joe, you hear the clips louder in your headset than we hear when you play them. Can you turn the volume up for the clips when you play them? I could turn myself down and have better balance if you think that'll help. I appreciate the feedback on that sort of thing, because it sounds very different for me than it sounds for you. So I will adjust my audio. I'm going to adjust my audio. This way, turn myself down a little bit. Okay. Testing. 1 2 testing. 1 2 3. All right.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for being on the program. The federal government coming in to cut your razor wire at your border. First off, your take on this, our take is there's no way that the founders of the Constitution would have ever intended the federal government to be able to force an invasion on a state. That seems utterly antithetical to the actual founding of our nation, which was to have 13 different states that protected themselves, right? Am I correct in that?
I mean, I'm the one that filed this lawsuit. It started happening. When I got impeached, I couldn't do anything. I saw it happening while I was out. The day I came back, I brought this to my staff and said, we have to stop this. There's no way that the federal government has the authority to damage our property, to stop us from defending the border. So just because we have a 5-4 ruling by the Supreme Court doesn't mean they're right. And it doesn't mean we're going to help them damage our own property and allow them to easily come cut our fences down. It's still wrong. And we're actually still in this case. It's not over. Obviously, it's a bad sign when they get rid of the injunction, but we're actually still in this case on the merits at the trial level.
So what is the path?
That's true, technically, but it's not looking good at this point. But I do think the fact that there's all this developing warring over it is helpful in convincing either Barrett or Roberts that this whole institutionalist game of saying federal power is probably not strategically wise.
Moving forward, I've seen some very strong statements out of the Texas state legislature and the governor, whose administration you serve. What is the path forward here? More razor wire, I'm seeing.
Absolutely. More razor wire. We're going to start.
So the razor wire was ripped down by the federal government. Texas said, okay, we're just going to put more back up.
Deporting people, I think in March, when that goes effective, we have legislation passed and it goes into effect, I think in March. And once they start deporting people, I'm sure the Biden administration will love that. We are also still protecting Shelby Parks. We're not letting the Border Patrol in there to process people. They can come in if they need to do some emergency process, but we're not letting them in there just to let more people in. So you're right. It cannot be true that just because the federal government not just ignores their federal laws, but actually aids and abets the cartels in getting people here. Because remember, these people are coming to our country and they're being brought by the cartels. They're not hiding anymore. They're not trying to run from Border Patrol. I don't think people realize it. They're actually just being brought to us. And the Biden administration is helping get as many people here for the very reason that you talked about with the election as possible in as fast a period of time before Biden is out of office.
So can you please explain to me, who is certainly not a legal scholar nor a lawyer, how the Supreme Court could rule on this along, John Roberts, of course, to his great shame, but as predicted, and Amy Coney Barrett was a surprise to many people.
Not a surprise to me. I'm actually surprised that Kavanaugh sided with the dissent. Not a surprise to me. I would not have been at all surprised to see 6-3 against Texas. They're very strong believers in having a strong federal government. And basically, you're talking about a conflict here between on something, a purview that has traditionally been seen as being under federal jurisdiction, specifically immigration. So that is something that is considered the purview of the federal government as per our Constitution, you can understand why they're going to say we're not giving any quarter to a state with respect to that particular issue. Now, this new wrinkle of declaring it an invasion and saying that this creates a right under Article 110.3 of the Constitution for us to protect ourselves from an invasion is potentially legally viable. Potentially. But remember what I explained to you as we continue watching the rest of this, okay? And we are going to continue watching the rest of it, but I just want to remind you of what I explained to you about how the law operates in theory versus in practice. So you have this conflict that's brewing here. What we have is we have an issue of unchecked immigration flooding across the borders into Texas and the southern states, Texas, Arizona, California. But a lot of them, obviously, Texas has the longest border with Mexico. So they're flooding into Texas. This issue has been long recognized as something that is of federal concern. We haven't had a situation where federal government has pretty much abdicated that responsibility and said, no, we're totally fine with it. We're totally fine with it. But the first state that they end up coming to is Texas. And Texas is like, well, we sure as hell ain't fine with it. And we view this, because it's such large numbers, as an invasion. Now, if we pull up Article 1, Section 10, subsection 3 of the Constitution, and we'll pull that up right now for you, so we can take a look at what it is that Ken Paxton is reliant on, and Governor Abbott as well. So we'll pull this up real quickly for you. It says, no state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power. See, this is all under federal authority. No individual state has that authority, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. Now, what do these words mean? At what point are you invaded? Is it when 10,000 come across the border, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, 3 million, 5 million? At what point do we say, is it proper to label an invasion? And what does this actually mean when we break it down? Okay, so now you are invaded. Now what? I mean, it's not like they're coming in there armed. Presumably, we don't know for sure, I guess, that they're not armed. I mean, they're probably more armed than the people who came into the Capitol on January 6th. Probably a lot more armed than the people who came into the Capitol on January 6th. So, but what does this actually mean? So they're saying, well, we're invaded. That's what Texas is saying. We're calling this an invasion. Now that we're labeling it an invasion, we do have the power to step up and intercede here. We do have the power to fill the void that's been left by our woeful federal government, by our inept and weak president. So that's what Texas's position is. The Supreme Court, they heard all this and they're like, this is all part of federal powers. That's what Barrett and Roberts went along with the left. The three justices from the left, Kagan, KBJ, and Sotomayor. So what does this mean? And the reason I pause this is just to remind you that this is an area of law where we keep finding ourselves in areas of law that don't really have a lot of historical precedent. Not a lot of historical backdrop over this as to what point is there an invasion. There's not a lot of history on this. Now we have a conflict between our federal government and a state as to whether or not this constitutes an invasion. Well, whose call is that? I don't know. What powers does a state have to exercise in the event that they are invaded? Well, you could probably ask 50 different legal scholars and get 50 different answers. So what's the law? What's the law? Well, we probably don't know. No one can say definitively what the law is. And we have this conflict now, which could very easily turn into literally a civil war. Because as we're going to cover soon, Texas is getting support from 25 other states, which are saying, we're with you. That's the map that I put up there in the thumbnail. 25 states. We're going to go through the letter they signed off on expressing their support for the state of Texas. So apparently Amy Coney Barrett and Chief Justice Roberts felt like, oh, we're going to put a kibosh on this and just declare everything under federal power, and that we don't see that Texas has a right to this injunction, and basically signal to Texas that we're not on your side, and then they're going to take a cue from it. And they did not anticipate Texas saying to the Supreme Court, essentially, F you. We don't care. Which all that does is basically all Amy Coney Barrett and Chief Justice Roberts did was they basically said, we're going to side with the federal government, not recognizing that they're siding with the man who is inept and flaccid, because he's weak, Biden. So here's the question. Is Biden going to send in, assuming Texas keeps flouting the authority of the federal government and says, we're going to send our Texas Rangers in there, we're going to send our Texas Guard in there, and we're going to basically keep doing this. So what's going to happen? Federal troops are going to come in there and they come to conflict with each other. What happens at that point? Are guns drawn? Do you think that Biden is going to start firing on Texan troops in order to enable a bunch of foreigners to keep flooding across? Is that how far he's going to go? Because it seems like Texas is like, don't mess with us. We are not backing down on this fight. Bravo to them for that. Now, is that legal? I don't know. It depends how you define this. So far, it seems like the Supreme Court is not really a big fan of calling this legal. But we have not reached a final determination. And since we haven't reached a final determination, they have every opportunity to basically say, yeah, Texas was right. And that's why having this feud now enables Roberts and Barrett to do a 180 and be like, yeah, if you're invaded, you have the ability to defend yourself. And if Texas would have just melted and said, well, what can you do? Supreme Court has ruled against us. We can't do anything, and we're going to back down here. It's almost certain that the Supreme Court would have basically come to a final adjudication, which will a ways away from that, but that they would have come to a final adjudication saying that this is full grant of authority for the federal government. States have no power here when it comes to anything related to immigration. But now that we've seen this manifest into a developing feud and potential drawing of arms, a brother against brother between federal arms and state arms against each other, and 25 states signing on with Texas, this changes the entire landscape of this picture. Where we're practically it seems as if there's like, it's almost like who's going to blink first. So if someone says, what's the law here? Oh, and some legal scholar comes and says, I'll tell you what the law is. I know what the law is. That's crap, because I'm going to tell you something. There is no law. That's what it really means. As of today, January 25th, 2024, there is no law. We have words in a constitution that can be interpreted in a multitude of ways, reasonably interpreted in a multitude of ways, which right now are rather abstract as to what they mean. So no one knows what the law is. And the losing side in this argument could see drastic ramifications. Drastic ramifications. And the question is, who's going to blink? And basically, Chief Justice Roberts is like, I got a feeling that Biden's not going to blink here. No, that's a good bet there. That's a good bet there, John. You back Biden that he's going to be the one not to blink. All right. Guess you missed that whole saga that happened in Afghanistan that you want to bank on Biden not blinking. All right. That's your gamble? That's what you want to bet? That he's the one who's not going to blink? Imagine this scenario. Imagine this scenario. There is a final adjudication in favor of the federal government, and Governor Abbott says, I still don't care. I'm defending Texas. So what does that do to the Supreme Court? Unless Biden's going to basically send in federal troops, national troops, to basically make sure that the Supreme Court's will is upheld, basically makes him into a joke. It's crazy times we're living in. Crazy, crazy, crazy times. I'm going to get super chats when we get back to that video. Ellie Fan says, would it be inhumane to catapult illegals back to Mexico? Asking for a friend. Don't mess with Texas. We do not support violence here on this show. There's no way to have a civil war in this country. It's not like 1861 where the sides lived in different regions. Democrats, Republicans are in every state in the union. There may be more riots. Well, it could be a civil war if there are troops drawing guns against each other. I agree with you that, yeah, there's Democrats, Republicans everywhere. But, yeah, it would be chaos. It would be. I'm sure there were abolitionists, but if you think about it for a second, V, I'm sure in 1861 there were plenty of abolitionists living down south, and plenty of people very interested in states' rights and slavery and upholding slavery living up north. So I don't know that it's going to be. I don't know that that's a condition precedent that there's a comfortable boundary line as to where the Mason-Dixon is for this particular battle. I don't know if it's a necessary prerequisite. Drop Barracuda says, I can't believe this dumb fact is relevant. In my home state of Texas, you can look up weird laws, and it's illegal to carry wire cutters specifically to protect barbed wire fences. There you go. Supreme Court only said the fences could be cut by feds. Texas isn't defying any order. They could follow behind and replace them if they want. Oh, I know that. That's great. And that's true. That's true. They simply said that the injunction, what the Supreme Court said is the injunction that stops them from going there is no longer in place. They didn't even say that the barbed wire is coming down. Just the injunction. Joe, 2 days in a row, I made it. Good job, Tex Vet. I'm late, but love you're covering our great state. Your great state deserves a great deal of coverage. Keep on leading, Joe Solo. I'm so glad that caught on. Joe Solo. The War of 1812 was considered an invasion. Yeah, but there wasn't a conflict there between the states and the federal government as to whether or not it's an invasion. So the question is, when the states and the federal government are in disagreement as to whether or not it's an invasion, what happens then? Which I don't think that issue has come up ever before. We've got our own energy grid, so we're good. There you go. There you go. You're good to go. There aren't many people in Wyoming to join the Civil War, but the attack antelopes are on standby awaiting our leaders. I'm not leading anything. Definitely not leading anything. Texas has its own state military. So I've heard. To answer your question about whether it or not it's legal, was the revolution legal? Was the Civil War legal? I think that's decided by the victors. That is true. And that's kind of my point, that there is no law on this. Ben George says, accepted precedent pornography. You know it when you see it. So invasion, you know it when you see it, kind of. Could be. Could be. No, my point is nobody knows. Nobody knows even what the law is supposed to be, much less whether it's going to be followed. Maybe this is exactly what they anticipated. It's a Fed duty. Mayorkas is closer to impeachment this week than last. Perhaps. To defend from all enemies, foreign and domestic. The oath had foresight is all I'm saying. Many take that very serious. Yeah. Yeah. We should arrest Biden. Similar to how a Russian land war in winter is losing battle, let those Yanks come down to Texas in the summer. Also, to all those saying the Civil War can't happen because of lines, but the American Civil War was an outlier. It's often more like the Arab Spring. Yeah, I think so too. We're remembering the Alamo. Look, I'm not looking to see anyone die. I'm really not looking to see anyone die. You got to figure this cannot be helping Biden's re-election aspirations. Anyway, let's get back to this interview here, because this is a great interview between Ken Paxton and Benny Johnson questioning Ken Paxton. So we're going to get back into that presently, as long as I just make sure that I'm caught up on locals. I don't know what's happening. Oh, I'm not caught up on locals. Fan says, what does Joe Neerman think of shirt design? Camp diggers. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. That's what I think. Don't forget Texas treaty to join the union. I would love a review of that treaty. I've thought about that. I have to look into the historical events, because I heard someone saying that there's a debt, there's a theory that there's a debt that was created because of the efforts that were fought to protect Texans. So Arizona had more migrants, but Democrat governor has been quite on mass migration and sending more to the north than Texas has done. He's been quiet on mass migration, sending more to the north than Texas has done. Oh, that's interesting. Johnny Reb, proud Texan. Don't mess with Texas. All right, let's get back into this interview here. Oh, I had a few more that popped up here. H Coffee says, "Can we just move Chris Christie to the block off the?" That's overkill. Americans have a strange view of civil wars because yours was actually a failed war of independence. Most civil wars are a fight to control the central government, not get away from it. That's a great point. That's a great point. That's a really great point. It's true. Usually when we have a civil war, it's a coup that's trying to take over the government. Every time we've had a civil war, it's been like, we're sick of having these people around us. Perhaps that's part of like why Americans have a very different cultural attitude about so many things compared to the rest of the world, where we're not just willing to just go along. We're not willing to go along. We don't need to take over, but we're not willing to just go along with whatever crap is being shoved down our throats. And there's a lot of patience, a lot of like, fine. But at a certain point, it's like, no, done. That's it. The line has been crossed. That's what we've seen historically from America. It's like, we're really sick of this. I'm really not liking this. Really not liking it. Until it's finally like, I don't need to take your government. I just need to be free from it. That's why Americans are all about freedom. Worth a listen, combat vet note. For those who don't know, Rep. Crane is a former SEAL. This is not easy for me to just copy. It's not easy for me to copy that. Time to send that 1057. Oh, I could. Drop Barracuda. Drop Barracuda is another fun, verifiable Texas fact. There are really more tigers in Texas than all the wild tigers in the world. Nobody knew that. All right, let's get back on.
How they could possibly rule that the Constitution, which was written by a bunch of people that had just rejected and repulsed the British invasion of their homes, would allow for the foreign invasion of a state. Like, how do you square that?
So they didn't actually give us an explanation. They just got rid of the injunction. So we don't actually have an opinion letting us know why they said this. Now, we can go back to Roberts, 10, 12 years ago when the U.S. v. Arizona case came down. He sided with the liberal judges back then. And unfortunately now, I was hoping with the new justices that they would all stick together against Roberts on this issue. Or maybe Roberts could see the error of his ways over the last 10, 15 years in allowing that case to go forward. He's seen the consequences of not just Texas, but really the entire country. And yet, here he is again, blocking the states from protecting their very own citizens from all types of crimes and all potential of even terrorists coming across the border.
Does this mean no more sanctuary cities? I mean, right? Like, so does this ruling mean that the federal government can just seize control of sanctuary cities and that they have supremacy here when it comes to immigration policy? So the next Republican administration just marches directly into sanctuary cities and say, this isn't a real thing?
Yeah, it seems like that, doesn't it? It seems like if that's true, if it's true on one side, it certainly seems like
That's a great question. It's a great question because the concept of sanctuary cities is basically saying in defiance that if they're not, and honestly, the issue of sanctuary cities seems defiant of federal government, federal law. Like, okay, so if you're not legal, you can come here and get sanctuary. Who says you have an authority to give sanctuary from the federal government? Why would a state be able to designate a city as a place that they can find respite from from federal prosecution? That doesn't seem to make sense.
the feds can do it on the other side, which is say we're not going to honor sanctuary cities. You can't do that anymore. We're going to move these people out of here. So you would think that, but none of this makes any sense. This is not sanctuary cities. You can't do that anymore. Constitution. This is a bunch of liberal judges ignoring the fact that we have a right as a state to protect ourselves. And you're right. It goes back to the founding of our country. There's no way that the founders would say, oh yeah, if the federal government's not going to protect you, you have to let all the consequences and potentially, people dying, you have to let all those consequences happen. States, no, you have no right to fight back.
I mean, Madison actually talks about this in Federalist Papers. There are multiple articles in the Federalist Papers about the potential of a foreign invasion and how the states are the first line of defense. And so now, given this ruling, I guess you'd have to reverse engineer that, but then state that if a Republican became president and the federal government has supremacy here, then a Republican could build a wall like Fort Knox on the border, and Democrats couldn't do anything about it. I mean, right? Like, can't you reverse engineer this into like Texas? Like the federal government can assist in Texas, like in a next Trump administration could assist in Texas in building like a militarized wall on the border, including crocodiles and a moat.
Which is what we should have.
I would think exactly if the Supreme Court's right. And
I actually, when I was in Twitter Spaces today, and we're talking about Trump v. Biden, as the topic of illegal immigration came in, and the whole border crisis at Texas and everything that was happening there, and some people on the left there were basically talking about this purported story, which I don't know if it happened, of a woman and two kids who were crossing the Rio Grande, and because of the barbed wire, purportedly they died. They drowned in the Rio Grande because of the barbed wire that Texas had set up there. And they said, how heartless and cruel are you that you're not worried about these people who are drowning in the Rio Grande? Like, can you, are you guys okay with it? Are you guys, you're okay with people dying trying to get into this country? You don't mind that she's drowning? And I was like, and I was the only one who stood up and was like, I don't care. I'm drowned. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I didn't get a chance to go any further than that before other people started interjecting. But I was like, let them drown. That's not us killing them. That's not Texas killing them. That's them deciding to risk their lives swimming across a river to break the law and come into a country that they got no freaking business coming into. So if a burglar wants to basically come flooding into your house and you have an alarm system there and trained dogs to protect you, and those dogs end up killing a burglar, F them. Who the hell told you to come? No one told you to come. They kept calling them asylees, and I was like, hell with that. They're not asylees. And to be an asylee, you have to stop at the next country. There have to only certain limited circumstances where someone gets a status of being an asylee, and you have to enter through a port. You have to come through a port of entry. There are 28 port of entries along the southern border, and one of them is not swimming across the Rio Grande. So you're not an asylee. So they threw back at me, so apparently because they broke the law, that means that you think they deserve to die. I'm like, no, I'm not killing them. I'm not putting them to death. If they decide to risk their lives to break our law, no, I don't think that it's our duty to sit here worrying about them. Stop doing that, because your stupid, pansy-assed approach to keeping out invaders is begging for this problem. You are creating this problem. Christ's sake. That's not being heartless. It's a matter of actually caring about your own citizenry. For crying out loud. Stop pretending that there's no cost to Americans. But that's the way that the left acts about this, as if there's no damage to this. There's no fentanyl crisis. There's no risk of any of, I don't know, MS-13 gang members. Are many of the people coming here harmless people or relatively harmless people who are looking to make a better life for themselves? Certainly. Probably the majority of them. Probably the vast majority of them. I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't matter. We allow more legal immigration than any country on the planet in history. Bar none. Over 1 million legal immigrants, and every single one of them, every single freaking one of them, I say, God bless you. Welcome to America. This is not about having an issue with immigration, which is another way they try to convolute this conversation. This is about illegal immigration. This is about knowing who's coming into our country. This is about respecting the value of being an American rather than just saying any schmuck can walk across our border and suddenly is an American. There is a special privilege to being an American. No, there's actually probably no greater privilege on earth than to be an American. And to basically say that anyone could walk in here and pose a threat to America means you don't give the slightest damn about America, and you certainly don't recognize the value of being an American. And if you don't recognize the value of being an American, your opinion means squat. You're useless. Sorry. I mean to get all agitated. I was frustrated that I was like, there's just too many people on this panel. And too many of them are basically talking, like the responses from too many of them were far too weak. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not in the mood to be a dick and talk over people. Then they try obviously turning it to racism. It's racism. It's racism. No, I don't give a damn if they're coming from Finland. Who cares? No one cares. Stupid. Let's see another red herring they try throwing out there. Try to pretend like, oh, you're all about racism. You're a fascist. Schmucks. All right, let me get back to this.
Obviously, you'd have to have some congressional approval because there were actually none of this is congressional approval. So you're right. I think you're right. I think that if the Supreme Court's rationale is correct, any president can do anything about immigration he wants, and it's fine. According to the Supreme Court.
I love reverse engineering this because like people, boom, clap, squee online, libs do, and then they don't understand like what happens when Trump wins a 350 electoral vote landslide in November, and then comes in and says, "Oh, well, lucky me. The Supreme Court's decided I can build anything I want on the border because I have supremacy here."
Exactly. And so I actually started thinking about this from the standpoint of, Congress has got to prove it. But under their theory, it's whatever Joe Biden wants to do or doesn't want to do. And then we have no ability to stop it. So if that's true, then presumably Trump can do whatever he
And he should. And he should. Basically be like, stop me. Stop me. How are you going to stop me from building it? I'm tired of making excuses for all this stuff. We have to start recognizing it's time to basically start carrying out our will in ways that, are legally justified. So I'm not advocating for anybody to break the law. I'm not advocating for anyone to engage in violence, but we need our leaders to actually step up and be freaking leaders and stop worrying about what the law is. As long as the law seems to support you, go for it. Tired of giving into these stupid, weak-ass pansies.
wants to do, whether the states like it or not, or the federal government's authorized it, he can do it.
Okay, so we're going to go full Game of Thrones, like the Great White Wall. Like, fantastic. Okay, great. Thank
I would love to see that Great White Wall. I would love to see it. I don't know if it has to be quite that high.
Thanks a lot. Again, I'm not arguing this is a good thing. Obviously, this is clearly a very bad thing. And now you've had all like the Republican Avengers have come to your side. It's actually quite neat to see an enormous phalanx of Republican governors have been standing up for Texas. What aid are they offering you?
So I want to pause with that. Now that he introduced that, I want to show you what these governors have done. We'll come back to this. This was earlier today, Republican governors band together, issue a joint statement supporting Texas' constitutional right to self-defense. 25 Republican governors released the following joint statement in support of Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Texas's constitutional right to self-defense. The statement comes as the Biden administration continues to attack Texas and refuse to take action or responsibility for the crisis at the southern border. Quote, President Biden and his administration have left Americans in our country completely vulnerable to unprecedented illegal immigration pouring across the southern border. Instead of upholding the rule of law and securing the border, the Biden administration has attacked and sued Texas for stepping up to protect American citizens from historic levels of illegal immigrants, deadly drugs like fentanyl, and terrorists entering our country. We stand in solidarity with our fellow Governor Greg Abbott and the state of Texas in utilizing every tool and strategy, including razor wire fences, to secure the border. We do it in part because the Biden administration is refusing to enforce immigration laws already on the books and is illegally allowing mass parole across America of migrants who entered our country illegally. The authors of the U.S. Constitution made clear that in times like this, states have a right of self-defense under Article 4, Section 4, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution. Because the Biden administration has abdicated its constitutional compact duties to the states, Texas has every legal justification to protect the sovereignty of our states and our nation. The signatories include governors of Alaska, Arkansas, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, even Brian Kemp, even the neocons, even the neocucks are getting on board with this. Brad Little, Eric Holcomb, Kim Reynolds, neocon Kim Reynolds, Jeff Landry from Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Ohio, New Hampshire, even freaking Governor Chris Sununu. Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. You wonder where Kentucky is in this. Why is Kentucky not there? Yeah, what do they have? They managed to get a Democrat governor in there? Beautiful, beautiful work. I'll even add, we'll come back to this. So that is the support that Benny Johnson was just referencing when he was talking here to Ken Paxton. So it's nice to see that solidarity from these 25 states. Although I wouldn't trust Chris Sununu to take our side in the war between the states. It seems like it's coming. Another fun. Oh, I got this one. Hi, so much to say. Invasion is the de facto state of war. Facilitating is treason and an illegal order, demanding arrest plus court-martial for issuer. Yeah. Remember the following, which stands with those 25 governors in the great state of Texas. Texas is trying to secede by vote in November was rejected because they couldn't verify digital signatures. Yet some places are using digital voter booths. Yeah. I was with you on the drowning. The net effect of the open border is far more destructive on the people here. They died on Mexico's side. They never made it to the U.S. But we can still blame Texas. Just get Ron to send Texas some gators. Well, Ron actually stepped up to the plate. You mentioned Ron, I'll bring you Ron. He's like, all right, I'm tired of being going from most popular to to one of the least popular governors.
Biden is going after Texas, saying that they must remove fortifications from their border. They put wire, they put things to keep people out. Biden's saying you got to take that down to let people come in illegally, which is just crazy. And I remarked that if the Constitution was originally understood to mean that a state could not protect itself against an invasion, if the federal government could force a state to allow an invasion, the Constitution would have never been ratified in the first place.
That's true.
Texas would have never joined the Union.
That's true. It never been ratified. What people are forgetting, what we're forgetting because we're alive, our lifetimes are too short, is that during the time of the Constitution, state power was far greater than federal power. Federal power was so weak then. Then the Federalist Paper number 46, Madison writes that that it's obvious that federal power will never get anywhere without being granted access and permissions from state power. But that assumption was laid in an assumption as to like the strength of forces.
And when it did. And if you look at Federalist 46, which Daniel Horowitz pointed out, James Madison talks about situations where federal encroachment can be mitigated by state action. So you have Texas here that's holding its ground. They have every right to fortify the border vis-a-vis an invasion, and that's Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. So they're in the right. You also have a situation where liberal jurisdictions over many, many years have been sanctuary jurisdictions against enforcing federal immigration law. So you'll have somebody who's a criminal alien, they will not be given over to ICE, and they will deliberately act to frustrate the laws on the books, and somehow that's viewed as okay.
Which I don't know why that is. The Supreme Court saying that sanctuary cities are illegal.
Texas, who's acting to enforce the laws on the books, to ensure that they have a secure state and that we have a secure country. So all of this is just nonsense what Biden's doing. Texas has every right to stand its ground. In Florida, we've been sending people to help for many years now, because we understand it's not just a Texas issue, it's ultimately an American issue. And if we don't have sovereignty in this country, then we're not going to be a country anymore. So they have every right to hold their ground, to stay the course, and Florida will continue to be there helping out every step of the way.
Good job. Great job there, Ron. Good job. Texas vet says, call accountability, that they must be accountable for their own actions. The problem is America dropped the morality over the past 20 years. I think a lot more than 20 years. I think it goes back to the 60s. Crew fed machine pews facing south. Crew fed machine pews facing south. Problem solved. Not sure what that means. Drowning miles away, Mexico reported 5 hours after. Interesting. I'm proud of Governor Landry for giving Louisiana support. However, could this backfire with POTUS calling for martial law and stopping the election? I'm not worried about that. I don't think he's got the cojones. If I ever have to play college football or go to war, will you please give us pep talks? I'll do my best. Invasion has cascading effects. Abbott must muster the Texas state militia, else one open to accusation he didn't really believe it was an invasion. I think he has. The Texas Antelope troops eagerly await the Wyoming ones. Beautiful. This is going to be, my channel is going to become like a war reporting. I'm going to have to like go underground, giving you news and updates of the war. God forbid. Elephant finally becoming a member of the following. Now you might not be aware of this, but the following is not at all a cult type of cult. There are no, and I should have said this to the several members who have joined or re-signed up tonight, that there's no spaceships, no Kool-Aid, no self-harm, no harming others, no virgin sacrifices, no squirrel mutilations, no goat sacrifices, no splattering blood on the walls, no track suits that are mandatory, just recommended, and mild farm work. So I am not the leader of the following. I'm just a follower, just like you. Never get confused about this. And the reason for all of these rules is because it's not at all a cult type of cults. I'm waiting for my... No! Nope. 2. Oh, this was, you said 1 before, now you're saying 2. You said that they have to, Edward said earlier, he started with 1, and now it comes 2, saying invasion demands citizens act. Formal muster enables control, maintains order, and stops rogue actors, whether just well-meaning or false flag. I'm telling you right now, I think he's going to. I think he's in the middle of doing it. I tried to listen. Spaces, however, there were too many sheep bleating that was ticking me off. I started getting ticked off with it also. And I didn't like the guy, the person they had who was controlling the flow of the dialogue. He wasn't enabling back and forth. I don't think he appreciates that what makes those spaces great is the fact that you do have some back and forth dialogue. Instead, he's like calling on hands like he's a stinking teacher in a classroom. I meant to say something. I'm sure they saw it. Because one of the co-hosts there seemed very frustrated with the way he was running things. So I don't think that problem will persist. I'm hopeful that even without me saying anything, the problem will be remedied. We're talking over each other, so I made my exit lines not sheep. Well, I mean, talking over each other, that will happen sometimes. That's okay. There has to be back and forth dialogue, though. Representative Eli Crane. Okay, you want me to pull up this Eli Crane thing? Confirms border invasion is unconventional warfare. Classified brief, combat vets, source Forbes, YouTube. Let me try to find this Crane thing that you were talking about earlier. I know you, Mike, you mentioned this earlier. Representative, or someone did. It might not have been you. Let me see if I can find this. And I'm not done with that Benny Johnson video interview of Ken Paxton yet, but Representative Crane. And I haven't even started Tucker yet. It's 11:20. I'm going to be running long tonight. I see stuff from him from 9 months ago. Is that really what you guys are talking about? Joshua says, Canada standing by for the great leader with hockey sticks and war crimes. Oh, you're gonna listen, Canadians, you're gonna love Tucker's speech they gave in Calgary. Have you seen the tunnels on the South Texas border? Not yet. Does making shorts fulfill my farming obligation? I enjoy your shorts. I had a feeling the no was going to be a short today. Did you see the Trump v. Biden v. Biden epic rap battle? I did see that. That was not bad. Not bad at all. I see here there's a couple of times where Eli Crane is going off on Mayorkas or other people about the border. Like I'm looking and I'm seeing a whole bunch of clips here on YouTube. Let me see which one that person wants me to get. It was at 10:50. What was it? I'll try to find it while we watch the rest of this.
So far, I mean, it's just words, but I do think that that's encouraging because hopefully this actually wakes the Supreme Court up. It wakes Congress up to actually act or maybe change. Because look, there's up until now, the Supreme Court's never had any pushback from Republican governors other than a few, like Abbott or maybe Ducey when he was there, and occasionally DeSantis. Now, if you have Republican governors allying together to speak out, I think we've got a much better chance of the Supreme Court maybe paying attention and maybe switching one of those votes. I'm not sure. Maybe Roberts is a lost cause, but maybe Amy Coney Barrett is not.
Mm-hmm. So
she seems to basically give Roberts what she goes with Roberts almost seemingly every single time.
Oh, this statement by Governor Greg Abbott, which I'm sure you had a hand in helping craft, that you have also promoted on your X account, Mr. Attorney General. You say that you stand ready to bring any legal means necessary to defend Texas. We push back against the out-of-control federal government. So what does that mean? Because now people inside of the Texas delegations are saying, how about Joe Biden should just wartime federalize the Texas National Guard, to just send American troops to conquer Texas, right? Like, is that where we're heading?
If it is, it's pretty scary. I mean, I can't imagine that occurring. But look, we're in uncharted territory, given the invasion that we have and the federal government aiding and abetting the invasion. And so
this is crazy. These are crazy times.
So we're fighting our own government. States, we need to realize this. We are fighting. We may not be doing it with guns. God help us if we end up there, but that is not the situation we should be in. The federal government should be helping us prevent the very bad consequences of allowing criminals and terrorists into our country. And it's hard to believe, but that's where we're at.
So the razor wire shall continue until morale approves. The deportations in the new immigration act that was just passed and signed into law, those will begin this spring. Do you believe that the federal government will step in to stop you from doing that? Joe Biden has threatened to.
Oh, I think they'll definitely try it. I mean, they've been emboldened by the Supreme Court.
By the way, I'm going to pause and make a prediction here that Biden is going to start doing a 180 on this border issue. I think he's gonna recognize the political suicide that he's engaging in, and we're going to see over the next several months that he's going to start saying, no, we're on Texas side. We really need to secure the border, and we've been doing everything we can, and the Republicans have been obstructionist, and we have this, been trying to pass these bills. What they throw in the bills also is like, so we're going to secure the border and give $11 billion to Ukraine. Every time they throw in these stupid poison pills. And then they're like, why are the Republicans against this? I don't understand. But I think he's going to do an about face. Rather than try to look weak, he'll be like, all right, let's all try to have unity here and let's try to secure the border. And then basically half-ass it. Because I think he's going to recognize this is political suicide. Rather than risking like sending federal troops down there to fight with Texas.
Well, I say the Supreme Court, 5 members of the Supreme Court. So I have no doubt that they're confident that Roberts and maybe Coney Barrett will side with them. I don't know. Hopefully they'll wake up and realize the massive consequences to that. But we're not going to stop trying. We have to fight because we have an obligation to help protect our citizens if the Biden administration is going to do just the opposite.
So Article 1 of the Constitution allows for the states' rights to self-defense. Has that just been destroyed here? What's your legal reading on this, Mr. Attorney General?
No, I don't think you can ever destroy the Constitution. I mean, whatever they say it means, the words are pretty clear. So I think we have a right and an obligation to defend our borders when the federal government fails to do that. And it was contemplated, as you said, by James Madison. The governor spoke of that himself, that there were times that the founders were worried that the federal government wouldn't step in, and individual states have the right and the moral obligation to protect their citizens. And we're going to do it somehow, some way. We're going to do it.
Well, Godspeed in all of that. I have one final, I guess, potential scenario to discuss with you that I think might put this into clearer context. Regularly, I try as hard as I can to explain this to liberals, like what they are doing to themselves. Regularly, Vladimir Putin talks about the purchase of Alaska. And Alaska is closer to Russia than it is to mainland America, and talks about what a mistake that was and how he wants to take that back, how he wants to dissolve that treaty and essentially take back Alaska. And so under this ruling, Alaska wouldn't be able to defend itself from like a Russian invasion. Like, correct? Like the federal government could and may decide that Alaska just simply has to go back to the Russians.
And not just eventually Joe Biden decides that. I think they were right. They made a mistake.
To be clear, Supreme Court has been particularly vague and seemingly intentionally so as to why it is that they struck down the TRO. So we don't know definitively what they're saying the law is on this issue. We don't know definitively where they stand with respect to Texas's interpretation of the Constitution. Nobody knows. We just know that they said that there's no injunction. That's all we know. That's all anybody knows. Anyone who says otherwise is full of crap. Now, we can definitely take leanings. We can take, it's not unreasonable to say the implication is that they feel that Texas is going to lose this case. And the likelihood of success is not in their favor. That's a fair reading of what they said. But technically, this is not in violation of the Supreme Court's, any of the Supreme Court ruling, assuming that they allowed the federal government to access. They came in and accessed. Now the question is, okay, now they accessed and removed and it's been replaced. Now what? Presumably, they'd be allowed to access and take it down again. We can do this every day. Put up more barbed wire, take it down. Put it up, take it down. Put it up, take it down. theoretically, that could happen.
1800s, and yeah, just we're not going to stop it. Let Russia have it. And under this theory, Alaska would be just stuck. They wouldn't supposedly be allowed to do anything. We know that they would do everything they could to stop that from happening. But that is the theory. They would have no right, as long as the federal government, because they are preempted from protecting themselves, they can't protect themselves.
Such a poisonous political theory. Other than prayers, how can our audience help you, Mr. Attorney General?
Look, just stay engaged. I mean, keep talking about it. I'm grateful that you are, and encourage
You're welcome,
your political leaders to get involved. If you're in other states, which we have people out listening from all these states, encourage your governor, encourage your attorney general to speak out about what's going on, because the more they hear from us in Washington, the more likely we are to get what we need.
Yes, that is exactly right. There's true power in the people. It still is that way, thank God. That is what Democrats are actually trying to solve. That's the X in the equation that they are trying to solve with 30 million criminal illegal aliens in this country, is that to dilute your power as a citizen.
That's certainly part of it. Although I was speculating on X earlier today that a part of it is also that they're kind of okay with some of these migrants being brought up there, because that just builds their census numbers. And they don't really care about their own constituents. They just want more power. So if it helps keep the number, despite the fleeing Californians, if instead they have migrants to help fill the census out, they keep their power. It's sad, but true. It's all about power at the end of the day. It's the only reason to allow this. The only logical reason is selfish greed. Abbott is now offered to install razor wire on private land at no charge. Also, if you need a guest slot filled for a 24-hour stream, let me know. Probably will. Are you good for 4:30 in the morning? Because that time slot is very open right now. It's very open. Jackalope Special Forces stand with our antelope brethren. You go, jackalopes. You go. China's wall 100% effective in keeping Mexicans out. That's true. These are facts. No Mexicans ever crossed the Great Wall of China. Zero invaded China. Just fill the Rio with crocodiles and sharks. That'd be pretty funny. That'd be pretty wild. How do you keep them all there? How do you keep them from migrating away? How do you keep them from? I don't know if sharks are really good in the Rio Grande, but yeah, crocodiles. Then you got to keep crocodiles from coming onto the private property. How do you keep them from going up into Mexico, like wandering up onto the shores of Mexico? That could be kind of bad. I like your thinking though. I like the thinking outside the box. You're thinking outside the box, Sherry, and that's what I like to see. There's one more little bit on this I think I wanted to cover. Or is that it? Might be it. That might be it. I managed to cover pretty much everything here. I was thinking about going through the Federalist Papers, Federalist number 46 that Ron DeSantis referenced. Specifically, but it's long, and I don't want to. Well, I'm going to read one part of it. We'll read one paragraph of it. Because this way you can say, where else am I going to get someone reading to me the Federalist Papers? You hear people reference it all the time, but who actually reads it? Do you read it? Have you ever read any of them? Well, let's do a little bit. One paragraph. We're admitted, however, this is from Federalist number 46, courtesy of James Madison. Rest his soul. We're admitted, however, the federal government may feel an equal disposition with the state governments to extend its power beyond due limits. The latter, meaning the state, would still have the advantage in the means of defeating such encroachments. Meaning, if the federal government ever tries encroaching on the state government, the advantage is going to be state government. That's the state of the world in 1788. States are more powerful than the federal government. If an act of a particular state, though, unfriendly to the national government, be generally popular in that state, which is what we're seeing now, and should not too grossly violate the oaths of the state officers, it is executed immediately, and of course by means on the spot, and depending on the state alone. This is his recognition that the states in 1788 had more power than the federal government. The opposition of the federal government or the interposition of federal officers would but inflame the zeal of all parties on the side of the state, and the evil could not be prevented or repaired, if at all, without the employment of means which must always be resorted to with reluctance and difficulty, meaning that they're going to end up having armed conflict. On the other hand, should an unwarrantable measure of the federal government be unpopular in particular states, which would seldom fail to be the case, or even a warrantable measure to be so, which may sometimes be the case, the means of opposition to it are powerful in our hand, meaning the states will have the power to push them back because states are more powerful in 1788. The disquietude of the people, their repugnance and perhaps refusal to cooperate with the officers of the Union, the frowns of the executive magistracy of the state, the embarrassments created by legislative devices, which would often be added on such occasions, would oppose in any state difficulties not to be despised, would form in a large state very serious impediments, and where the sentiments of several adjoining states happen to be in unison, would present obstructions which the federal government would hardly be willing to encounter. Meaning, when the states bandy together, the federal government is going to be particularly weak. But ambitious encroachments of the federal government on the authority of the state governments would not excite the opposition of a single state or a few states only. They would be signals of general alarm, and that's what we're seeing now. Every government would espouse the common cause. A correspondence would be open, and that's what we saw today. This is James Madison showing his prescience. Plans of resistance would be concerted. One spirit would animate and conduct the whole. The same combination, in short, would result from an apprehension of the federal, as was produced by the dread of a foreign yoke. Meaning, we'd start looking at the federal government the same way we looked at the British. Look at the prescience. Look at the prescience of James Madison. And unless the projected innovations should be voluntarily renounced, the same appeal to a trial of force would be made in the one case as was made in the other. Meaning, that's what we're going to see happen. The federal government tries impeding on state rights. But what degree of madness could ever drive the federal government to such an extremity? Well, this is a good question, James. What degree of madness would drive them to this extremity? In the contest with Great Britain, one part of the empire was employed against the other. The more numerous part invaded the rights of the less numerous parts. The attempt was unjust and unwise, but it was not in speculation absolutely chimerical. But what would be the contest in the case we are supposing? Who would be the parties? A few representatives of the people would be opposed to the people themselves, or rather, one set of representatives would be contending against 13 sets of representatives with the whole body of their common constituents on the side of the latter. The only refuge left for those who prophesy the downfall of the state governments is the visionary supposition that the federal government may previously accumulate a military force for the projects of ambition. And that's what we've seen. Federal government arming itself militarily more and more powerful, where the states right now have zero power compared to them, at least in a military sense. The reasonings contained in these papers must have been employed to little purpose indeed, if it could be necessary now to disprove the reality of this danger. That the people of the states should be a sufficient period of time elect an uninterrupted succession of men ready to betray both. That the traitors should throughout this period uniformly and systematically pursue some fixed plan for the extension of the military establishment, which is we've seen in the industrial military complex. That the governments and the people of the state should silently and patiently behold the gathering storm and continue to supply the materials until it should be prepared to burst on their own heads, must appear to everyone more like the incoherent dreams of a delirious jealousy or the misjudged exaggerations of the counterfeit zeal than like the sober apprehensions of genuine patriotism, which unfortunately he was wrong on this one. I'm not going to go through the rest of this because this is this is I think you get the general disposition over here. All right, closing down. I will say, this is what I wanted. This was shared with me. I knew there was something I was forgetting. So someone had asked me to review this, and it's on point here, I believe. This was earlier today. Representative Eli Crane, former Navy SEAL. See, I listen to the people. The people make a request. I listen to the people. I have not vetted this yet. I don't know what he's going to say, but I have a feeling, inkling, it's probably going to be based.
My Democratic colleagues today, I think you probably had a decent idea of what the problem was before you came up here, but I think it's a lot more in focus now, is it not? I'm glad you had a chance to confront the problem today. We will continue to confront the problem, but I'm glad you got a chance to see it for yourself. Ms. Pearlstein, you said during the audio recording that the chairman played, one of the criteria for impeachment is serious offenses against public trust. Do you still stand by this comment today, ma'am?
So in case you're unaware, Homeland Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is facing potential impeachment. So this is part of the hearing, which I covered parts of this, I think last week when it opened. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago now. I'm losing track of time. Days are starting to blur together. Blur. So, but I definitely was covering the opening of this.
As I've explained before, offenses against the public trust are instances in which an official is willfully acting for his own benefit or the benefit of his own power or on behalf of a foreign power.
Thank you. How is this border crisis that has been planned and executed by Secretary Mayorkas not a serious offense to public trust, Ms. Pearlstein?
Having read through the materials, I see no evidence that Secretary Mayorkas has acted on behalf of his own benefit, financially or politically. And I see no evidence that there is collusion or other cooperation or acting on
Ma'am,
behalf
do you
of
see
foreign power.
evidence of betrayal of public trust? If you need help finding that, ma'am, look to your right. There's two mothers in here that have had their complete lives destroyed, their families destroyed. I'm going to ask Ms. Dunn, has your public trust in Secretary Mayorkas and the Department of Homeland Security been broken?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Nobles,
Yes.
do you guys feel betrayed by Secretary Mayorkas and the Department of Homeland Security? You guys know his job is Secretary of Homeland Security. His job in his title is to protect the homeland, Homeland Security. Do you guys feel betrayed?
Yes.
I thought so. Ms. Pearlstein, are you familiar with Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, often known as the Invasion Clause?
I should pull that up also.
Yes, I've read the Constitution.
That's not what I asked, ma'am. I asked if you're familiar with that
Yes.
article.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to read it. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. And here's the point. And shall protect each of them against invasion. Ms. Nobles, Ms. Dunn, do you think that this Homeland Security Secretary is protecting these states against invasion? Is protecting Arizona?
Arizona is not protected against invasion.
Ms. Pearlstein, after having me read that, do you think that this secretary is protecting the 50 states against invasion?
The word invasion in that clause is not in reference to migrants who are not trying to overthrow the government of the United States.
Well, when you say not trying to overthrow, that might not be the individual aspiration of them, but as a collective.
Oh, it's interesting that you say that, ma'am. Very interesting that you say that. Ma'am, Ms. Pearlstein, have you ever studied unconventional warfare? Any idea what that term means?
I've heard that term used. I'm
What do
not
you
an expert in unconventional warfare.
You have any idea what it might mean? Go ahead, take a stab at it.
I would rather hear your definition.
Okay, great. Do you think in any wild and unprecedented strategy in the history of the world, one of our adversaries might try and send their soldiers to infiltrate our country using our wide open border, not putting them in uniforms and having them come and present themselves in front of our Border Patrol agents and tell our Border Patrol agents, oh, we're just innocent immigrants. We just want a better life. Do you think that's even possible, Ms. Pearlstein?
Might anyone ever lie at the border? Yes.
Okay. So it is possible that tens of thousands, you know that's how many we're getting a day, right, ma'am? About 10,000 a day, 10 to 15,000 a day. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of any statistics.
Okay, well, I'll fill you in then, ma'am. You're in the Homeland Security Committee. It's about 10 to 15,000 often, sometimes 12,000 a day. That's more than a combat division coming through our southern border from 160 countries, some of which are adversarial. And I'm going to tell you right now, unconventional warfare has been used since the beginning of time. These people aren't stupid. They're using access to our country to bring in individuals who want to do harm to it.
And I'm just going to pause in what he's saying here to make the following point. Just make this point to you. Even if at the outset of the Biden administration, there was no unconventional warfare happening, how stupid would someone who considers America an enemy, how stupid would you have to be to not take advantage of these open borders? So you either have to be living in the clouds where you believe that we have no real enemies, despite so much evidence to the contrary, or you assume that every one of our enemies are idiots, morons, who never realized, hey, we could just send in thousands of troops across the border and they're not even going to be screened by anybody. They can come carrying whatever arms they want. Just march in there, look like you've marched for a couple of days, and boom, you're in the country. With millions of Democrats looking to naturalize you. Like, how stupid do you have to be to not recognize that anyone with even mid-wit level intellect is going to say, that seems like not a bad plan. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have in the back corners of our objectives here. I mean, how stupid do you have to be to pretend that that's not a reality, a potential reality? So you either have to be like so freaking naive that you can't believe that America has any enemies, or you're so naive that you assume that those enemies are morons, utter morons. Does that mean that the millions of people who come in here, that the majority of them are evil or have some sort of nefarious objective? Obviously not. Do I believe that the majority of them have a nefarious objective? No, I don't. I think it's a relatively small proportion of them. Let's just say it's 1 out of 100 of them. 99 of them are totally fine. 99 of them are people just looking for a good life, a better life. 1 out of 100 has a nefarious objective. Well, you allow in 10 million people. That's 100,000. That's 100,000 people who have a nefarious objective. How insane do you have to be? Say, oh, that's totally fine. We're going to have 100,000 people just invade our country who actually have a nefarious objective. I think you have to be, if there's something, you have to be disturbed to say that's okay. That's not a concern. Anyone who raises that as a concern is racist. Your freaking minds.
I've been in the classified briefs. It's a fact, ma'am. How many families have to be ruined? How many mothers have to sit next to you before you come to understand this is an invasion of our country and he's in complete dereliction of duty of his constitutional oath to protect and defend the United States of America? How many, ma'am? Would we need to have 100 here today for you?
Impeachment will not address the policy problem you describe.
That's not a policy problem. That is him completely derelicting his oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. I read you the invasion clause. He is not doing that, ma'am. He's in complete dereliction of doing it in accordance with the other laws that other committee members have read to you today. And I think it's sad. This shouldn't be a partisan issue at all, and you know it. I yield back. Ms. Dunn, after listening to...
It shouldn't be. Was that Owen Wilson?
An issue at all, and you know it. I yield back.
What?
Ms. Dunn,
I need to save that.
Know it. I yield back.
I love me some Owen Wilson.
Ms. Dunn.
Back. Dude. I'll have to come to it later. All right. That was wrap on the Texas border. We returned the same argument I had last year. Montana taking out the balloon. I don't remember that. Oh, the balloon. Oh, that was for the Chinese balloon. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. The gentleman in the background of that video that is in the goatee is another SEAL and brother of the lone survivor. Oh, cool. To further his point, our own CIA and special ops pull missions to overthrow our enemies' governments using this tactic. It's the CIA playbook. The CIA often brags about it. Ask Bolton. We do this. Great point. Charles says she doesn't know the statistics of her job, obviously. Why would she? I don't know if that's her job. I think she's just some Princeton theorist. So I don't know that that's her job. It says something about her being from Princeton. So it's probably not her job, to be fair. We're the morons. We've been hearing from morons for decades. We don't question the talking heads that are typically wrong. None of these Congress critters are going to solve this. Well, you have to at least raise the issue. That's be recognition of there being an issue to get anything started. Okay. So that's a wrap on the Texas issue. I wanted to cover one more thing here, and that was a based speech from our good friend here, Tucker Carlson. He gave this earlier. When did he give this? Yesterday? When was this? 10 hours ago is when this got uploaded. He uploaded this 10 hours ago, so he probably gave this speech last night. I'm assuming he gave this speech last night in Calgary.
Someone just gave me this T-shirt, which I just love so much. I'm actually going to wear it in the privacy of my own home. Al freaking Berta, baby. What a great province this is. What a great country this is. In fact, I was just be told, I've never said this to anyone, including my wife, but I know that in Canada, it's official policy that coming out of the closet is good, unless you're the prime minister. So I'm going to reveal something about myself that I've never revealed, which is that I am part Canadian. And yes, I am. I actually am part Canadian. And I was thinking this morning, I was like, I always say I'm the only American who's like legitimately interested in Canada, and I am. And I always have been. And I wonder, why am I so obsessed with Canada? And I thought, because I'm part Canadian. My great-grandfather, actually my father's family was in the colonies, and then they brought democracy, and they're like, we're out. We're going to Nova Scotia. And so they spent a couple hundred years there. The Rayfuses, they're still there, by the way. I think they're all liberals. But and then my great-grandfather's like, I'm going to try that again. So he comes to the United States, and I'm here as a result. So I feel it. In me is Canadian. And I've been all over your country, and
Thank you.
I've been everywhere in your country, and I just think it's a remarkable place. And I think people don't quite understand what Canada is because so much of it is bumped right up against our border. And I would argue, no offense, that the least impressive places in Canada are right up against our border. But once you get past that, it's just
56th.
unbelievable. I've been to this city a lot because of your mountains, which I just find
Tracking
beyond
millions.
belief, really the prettiest places
Unbelievable.
I've ever been. This country is the prettiest country I've ever been in. The second biggest country in the world, bigger than the United States, deeper oil reserves than the United States, more natural resources than the United States, and 1/9 the population. And when I hear the lunatics that run your government are like, our population's growing, we're so excited. I'm like, really? You want to live in a crowded country? 40 million people in the world's second biggest country? That sounds like the kind of place I want to live. Like, what are you even talking about, you morons? But anyway, so I've come to Canada a lot, and every time I come, so many things strike me. First and foremost, the natural beauty, the unbelievable natural beauty, prettier than Switzerland, in my opinion. And the second thing I notice is the politeness of the people. That's real. And the third thing I notice is that all the comedians left decades ago. And it brings it out in me. And making fun of Canadians, and as I've already told you, and I hope it's obvious, is done with love.
I'm just going to give you a heads up. It's a little bit of a slow start. It actually gets better. He starts. You'll see, it's about 6-7 minutes in that he really starts hitting his stride.
But I just can't control myself because no one will ever laugh at your joke. And so every time I go to Toronto, which I try not to do, but I do wind up there, every time I check in a hotel, I'm like, you guys have hot water? Like, where'd you get all the electricity? This is unbelievable. And they always have the same responses. We've had electricity for a long time, eh? know it's a joke. You don't really have sled dog parking in front. I know that. No, we haven't had sled dogs in a long time, eh? And so I just love it. I've told so many sled dog and Molson jokes. It's just, and I'll never stop. But one of the reasons I do it is because I do think it's important to laugh at your circumstances, not simply because it makes you feel better, though it does, but because it gives you perspective on them. And humor requires some distance, some critical distance, both from yourself and from your surroundings. And you can't really see things clearly until you have that. So if you have a country where the funny people feel like they have to leave, that's a huge problem. And that's the first problem. The second problem is you can't really be effective as a political movement or a resistance movement, which effectively you are, if you don't laugh at your enemies. Because not only are they evil, and they are, they're also ludicrous. They're ludicrous. And it's really important to say that because it saps their power immediately. Laughing at somebody, and if you're a married man, you know that, no, it's true. Your wife could come and hit you in the face with a 2x4, and that would be less painful than having her laugh derisively at you, particularly when you get out of the shower.
This is an important thing to remember. Saul Alinsky actually makes this as one of his points, that the best way to refute your opposition is to laugh at them. And this is, and just as an aside note, the power of using humor is so long established that it actually in code of Jewish ethics going back thousands of years, they basically say that someone who makes mockery out of like Judaism is like considered like the worst offense. It's like the worst possible offense. You see similar with Muslims, where they get, they certainly are very defensive of any humor that they deem to be mocking Islam. So, but the reason I'm mentioning all this is not to get biblical on you all, but just to point out that this recognizing the power of humor in taking down someone effectively, memorably, immeasurably, and with a astonishing dominance is a long recognized power. And it's a power that we need to use effectively against the left. They've been using it against us for a long time. And it's something that we need to embrace a lot more.
That would just end it for you. That would end it. Your male power would evaporate like a puddle on a hot day. Like you'd be done.
That is great. That is great. He's playing on Alinsky's book, which is called Rules for Radicals. That is, I tip my cap to you. Very well done. Very well done, Tommy Two Guns.
Because it has that effect. And so to look at your enemies, like let's say you had some sort of weird
is that really
prime
true?
minister like to dress up in fussy costumes.
Wow.
It would be super important to point that out a lot, like relentlessly. Somebody told me last night that his base, I was asked, we had this wonderful dinner last night with two of the most famous people in Canada, probably the two most famous people, Lord Black and my friend Dr. Jordan Peterson. And I asked,
little name drop in there from Tucker. Everyone's like, who's Lord Black? We just know Jordan Peterson.
I asked, like, is there anyone in the country who supports this guy? He's so, I mean, I know him only, I've never met him. I only know him through television. I know his cousin Gavin Newsom pretty well, but I don't know him. Is there anyone who takes him seriously? And everyone in the room said, oh, yeah. Young people, particularly young women, take him very seriously. They love him. And I thought there's really only one way to combat that, and that's by pointing out what an absurd poser this guy is. He's like a ridiculous figure. Like, you should dislike and resist Justin Trudeau and his government to the maximum extent of your ability. But before you do that, you should just laugh at him until you can't breathe. Seriously. The guy's like, he's showing up for a costume party when no one else is. There's no costume party, and there's Justin Trudeau, like speaking as some sort of moral voice, weird little cross-dresser. So anyway, that's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice, once you've done that, which is very effective, and I know it's not the Canadian way because it's such a polite society that everyone feels morally bound to take everyone else's point of view very seriously and sort of nod gravely and pretend to consider their perspective. But there are some perspectives that aren't in fact perspectives, they're attacks on you. And that's the main thing that I want to say in the short time allotted today, is that you should recognize what is happening to you. This is not a political debate to which you've been invited to participate.
No.
This
No one wants
is
your
a destruction of you
Yep.
and your culture and your beliefs and your children and your future as a country. And that's not overstatement. It's provable statistically. So just take 3 steps back. If you have a government that is giving fentanyl to your children, as they are in BC, and notice your premier has a no fentanyl to kids policy, God bless her. I know, and you're applauding. I mean, and I'm applauding, and I'm grateful. But how distorted is your world where you have to applaud the one politician's like, we're not going to give fentanyl to the kids today.
It's crazy. That's crazy. Now, when he said this, I didn't know what he was talking about. I did not know what he was talking about when he first said this. And I looked it up. And I found this, which was reported by National Post. Which says, BC, British Columbia, plans to give safer supply of fentanyl to minors, and parents won't have a say. No minimum age listed in protocols providing youth with taxpayer-funded recreational fentanyl. What the hell? That was January 10th, this was reported. In what constitutes a clear trampling of parental rights, British Columbia recently authorized the provision of safer supply fentanyl to youth across the province, regardless if parents are informed of or agree to this measure. The provincial government has provided limited access to safer supply fentanyl since at least 2020, primarily through small-scale pilot projects. However, last August, the British Columbia Center on Substance Use, an influential research organization, published protocols permitting doctors and nurses to prescribe safe fentanyl tablets to adults and minors. The organization confirmed to me in an email that it had been contracted by the province to produce these documents to further support clinicians prescribing safer supply across the province. While the BC government generally promotes its commitment to safer supply, it was oddly silent in this instance. I became aware of the new protocols only because 2 concerned addiction physicians contacted me shortly after their publication, as there has been zero media coverage of this development, excluding a report I authored for the McDonald-Laurier Institute, published last month. The provisional government has been able to ramp up the distribution of safe fentanyl with almost no public scrutiny. This is a shame, as the new protocols are full of red flags, including a jarring near absence of safeguarding measures when giving fentanyls to minors, to say nothing of the obvious ethical issues around underage consent. The only special requirement for underage patients is the use of 2 prescriber approval system, where one prescriber conducts the patient intake interview and another reviews the client's charts before signing off. A number of addiction experts have criticized this as deeply inadequate. Dr. Leonora Regenstreif, a Hamilton-based addiction physician, said she found it hard to imagine that 2 doctors and nurses working in the same clinic would significantly challenge each other's prescribing decisions. So there you go. The protocols do not provide a minimum age for when youth can receive recreational fentanyl. When the BCCSU was asked whether a minimum existed, they did not reply. Documents also make no mention of the right or roles of parents of drug-addicted minors. BCCSU was asked why the fentanyl protocols made no reference to parents. What would the organization say to parents who do not want their children to receive safe fentanyl? Whether the organization believes that drug-addicted youth can provide informed consent regarding safe fentanyl. What can parents do if they believe that children are being harmed by the safer supply of fentanyl? No response. The protocols clearly state that to date there is no evidence available supporting this intervention safety data or established best practices for when and how to provide it. How about never? How about never? That's a good starting point. Never give kids fentanyl. This is a government that's supposed to be protecting. The reason, and you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't live in British Columbia, so it doesn't affect me. But here's the thing. Canada is the canary in the coal mine. They're 2 years ahead of us, 3 years ahead of us. Whatever happens there comes here, ultimately. So what are you going to say when California starts allowing fentanyl? Starts dispensing fentanyl to children? Because that's the solution to the whole fentanyl crisis is, hey, just give them fentanyl. Then you don't have to worry about people overdosing on fentanyl. That's where we're headed. That's where we're headed. It's so predictable. It's so predictable. We're going to start hearing cries for our government to start giving away. Everyone should get fentanyl. Keep it safe. I mean, that's what happened with the whole. We need abortions because people are having sex. Because kids are having sex. Because we're basically teaching them to have sex when they're in high school. So now you need to have abortions. So it's like, okay, so we're going to import all this fentanyl. So now we have to start giving kids fentanyl. It's like we're going to create problems just so we can create crappy solutions that make society worse.
Okay, but then take 2 steps further back from that and ask yourself, if someone's giving fentanyl to your children, what's kind of the message of that? Well, they're trying to kill your children, obviously. Fentanyl? It's the #1 cause of death under 40 in the United States. #1 in the whole country, followed by suicide. If you want to know where we are, we're about 2 years behind you. And it's only because we have a louder media space than you do that we aren't ahead of you. But if someone's giving fentanyl to your children without telling you, they're trying to kill your children, which are your inheritance, so the only meaningful thing you will ever produce on earth, okay, are your children. That's the first thing to know. Second, if they are trying to kill you, and by the way, I know I'm offending everyone, even this group, because no one in Canada wants to talk about anything. It's like an Episcopalian Christmas dinner. And I grew up in that world, so I know everyone's had like 3 too many, and then someone will blurt out, "You wrecked my childhood!" And then everyone will sit there in silence. It's so awesome. But Anglo-Canada, like Anglo everywhere, doesn't like to say anything out loud. But let me just do it anyway. If you're killing 50,000 of your citizens, if the government is doing that through the MAID program, and a lot of them are not actually terminally ill, they're just sad, and the government is encouraging them to submit to being killed by the government, and then won't release the recent statistics, like, what is that? What is that? Yeah, it's genocide. That's exactly what it is. It's killing large groups of people. And who are those people, by the way? We don't know, because your government hasn't released the stats. What percentage of those were born in Canada? I'd bet right around 100%. So if you're a government, you have the duty to your citizens, people who are from here, people whose ancestors built the place, not exclusively to them, but primarily to them, to your citizens. Like, why else do you exist except to serve your citizens? And if you're targeting your citizens, how many people who arrived in Canada in the last 10 years have opted into the MAID program? I don't know the answer. I'd bet around 0. It's all people who are from here. And now the government brags, oh, we're saving money because they died. That's the darkest thing I can imagine. I bet there's 0 conversation about that in this country, because I know this country and I know what it's like. It's too horrible. No one wants to talk about it. You should talk about it. But more than anything, you should internalize the message of that, which is they hate me.
It's important to have uncomfortable conversations. Those are usually far more important conversations than the comfortable ones, sadly. That's the reality of life.
They hate me to the point they're willing to kill me, which they are. And the third thing is, notice the erosion of your most basic civil liberties, not the ones granted to you by the crown, but the ones granted to you by God. And those would include the freedom of speech, which is inalienable. It cannot be taken from you, no matter who is in Ottawa, or as we say, Ottawa, which, by the way, is the correct pronunciation according to my friends in the Ojibwa community. I've pronounced it that way every time on television, and I get all these angry, you're pronouncing it incorrectly. You don't even know the name. It's like, yeah, I know a lot about Canada. I'm doing it on purpose to make fun of you so you will laugh, but you won't. And then this Ojibwa leader writes in and he goes, yeah, all the whites are wrong. It's actually Ottawa. Go Ottawa! Anyway, it doesn't matter who's in the prime minister's office. Your rights remain the same because you were born with them, because you are not a slave, you're a human being, and you have inherent dignity because God made you. That's just a fact. And if they're taking those rights away piecemeal and doing so in the name of public safety, even as they make the public sphere much more dangerous, which they have, in case you haven't noticed, Canada has a lot more violent crime now than it did 20 years ago. Have you noticed? Of course you have. You live here. And if they're telling you you can't defend yourself against that crime, we're going to disarm you. You can't protect your life or your family.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, yeah, it's for the public safety. It's just not a big deal. These are weapons of war. No, they're weapons of self-defense, which you need and deserve as a free person, not a slave. And then they're telling you you can't complain about it. And then they're subsidizing the media to the point where all of your big media outlets, which are disgusting, are state media because they're taking state cash. Do you watch CBC? I do occasionally. I can turn in any hour of the day and I will learn that I am racist for driving an SUV and not being trans. That's the whole schedule of CBC programming. But interpret that. That's not woke. Oh, it's woke. I hate the woke crap. It doesn't mean anything. They hate you. That's what they're saying. They're saying that you are bad. That's exactly what they're saying. Don't lie to yourselves. That's all I'm saying. And we are very delusional in the United States because we're so distracted by stuff and electronic devices and the promise of next day delivery from Amazon of brightly colored plastic crap made in China that we tend to be slow to figure out what's going on. But Canada has a different restraint, which is a cultural one. It's an Anglo-specific, Anglo-cultural one, which is just like, I don't want to deal with that. That's too uncomfortable. But in your heart, anyway, even if you voice it to no one but yourself, know what the message is. And the message is you are bad. I mean, I'm going to say the most controversial thing ever. I watched when Montreal was cleansed of its Anglo legacy. And I'm not anti-French, just for the record, at all. But I am Anglo, and I had friends in Montreal. And in the span of a generation, like, that's all gone. They were forced out. And they're like, okay, I guess we'll go to Ontario. What? My grandfather built this city. I'm not going anywhere. How about that? That never occurred to anyone. Because no one could say out loud what was actually happening. This was a series of acts of hostility aimed at you because of things that you didn't choose, like how you were born. And once you will keep allowing that, you have no future, okay? So if they're limiting your freedom to say what you think, which is the freedom of conscience, the most basic of all freedom, your freedom to defend yourself and your family against bodily harm, which has got to be a twin to the first one. If they're taking away your voting power by changing the population of your country, which they are doing, and no one wants to talk about that, Canada has the highest immigration rate in the world per capita.
Yep.
And shut up, racist. That's not racist. I don't care if they're coming from New Zealand. I don't care if you're taking the population of Stockholm and moving them to Canada. If you change the population of the country, you change the country. And you dilute the voting power of the people who are vested in that country, the people who are born there, who have lived there long term, who understand.
Yeah, we need to stop worrying about the concept that people are trying to label the Great Replacement theory, which is not a theory, it's a reality, that the Great Replacement reality is somehow racist. Because what he's saying is spot on. It's spot on. If you're not, if the objective is to dilute your voice, then that's a way of silencing you. Washington State and Oregon have been doing that for years, including safe injection kits for meth and addition and crack that includes crack pipes. And NY Renal MD says, I'm a med director for several opiate treatment facilities. Giving out fentanyl has no medical evidence that it's safe and effective at its goals. I am not a doctor. NY Renal MD seems like more likely to have medical advice, but there's no medical advice giving out on this channel. So, because I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. I don't even know if medicine is real. It might just be like witch doctors. It could be. You don't know. You should really talk to your own doctor. Talk to your own doctor. Speaking of, I'm struggling. Okay, you know my Trump trial channel. Yeah, it was my monetization application was rejected because I don't comply with the rules. I don't know what they're talking about, but apparently they say that I was restreaming other stuff. So like if I'm watching something like this, and commenting on it, they feel like that even though it's perfectly fair use, completely legal, but that's a reason to reject me from monetization. So right now, I'm in a battle with YouTube to get monetization for that channel. And I'm basically not streaming there until I get that thing monetized, because I'm not giving them free views. Spirit of 1776 rises. Amen. It's racist. First exposure to Tucker was the infamous Crossfire segment. Good to see. Eventually took Jon Stewart's words to heart, dropped the bow tie and got real. Yeah.
And the history and the culture of the country, who are bought in. And all of a sudden, their vote means much less. It's math. You guys do that. Math. That's horrifying that this is happening. And there's no public debate over it whatsoever. Why do you think that's happening? Is it for economic reasons? I'd be kind of okay with that. If someone could stand up and say, we're totally changing the population of Canada because we think it's better for our economy. Okay, tell me how. We can have rational conversations. We're adults. I'm a citizen. This is my government too. Tell me how that works. But they can't, because that's not true. Look at your housing prices. Look at the strain on your services. Look at your healthcare system, which no Canadian I meet brags about anymore. And one of the main reasons is it's overburdened. There are too many people. Oh, we need population growth. Really? Tell me why. Tell me why all of these slogans make sense. I've watched Canadian hockey from time to time. They literally say diversity is our strength before they open the game. Okay, what does that mean and why is it true? Shut up. No, I'm not going to shut up. You're telling me to accept a slogan, so it's incumbent on you to explain what the slogan means and why it makes sense.
And the struggle is real to try to explain that. That's our strength. That's our only strength. I guess. I don't know. But what the slogan means is very confusing also.
That seems like a common sense rule. If you're forcing something down my throat, tell me how it tastes before I swallow it. Oh, shut up, racist. No, not going to. Not racist. I'm not going to shut up. Answer the freaking question, you weird cross-dressing prime minister. And the last thing I'll say, and I will stop with this because I'm sure I've gone beyond the time allotted. Keep going. I'm out of control. Unleashed in Canada. The last thing I'll say, which also may be controversial because it sounds like a parochial concern or some sort of, weird religious thing or something, and it's not. But take a look at what they're doing to your Christians. And I say this for a couple of, I am a Christian, but that's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because there's kind of no more inoffensive and peaceful group in the world than the Christians. In fact, there isn't. Their religion tells them, commands them to turn the other cheek and to put the concerns of others above their own concerns. So if you have a problem with those precepts, explain it to me. Speak slowly so I can understand. I think every person in this room, regardless of your faith, can agree, yeah, I'm for that. I wish I was more like that. That's good. We need more of those people in society. Serve others for the sake of service. People who pray for their enemies. Who does that? Who would pray for an enemy? No one, except the Christians, and they do. They're commanded to. So if you're hassling that group, maybe you've got another agenda that we should be concerned about, even if we're not in that group.
Maybe.
If we burn 90 of their churches to the ground, and the prime minister and his little weird buddies are endorsing that, burning churches, if you're on the side of burning churches, let me just say, I don't need any other facts of the case, you're on the wrong side.
That's true.
If you're throwing preachers in prison for preaching the Christian gospel, not for hurting anyone, not for making pipe bombs, not for trying to castrate other people's children, not for importing millions of people into your country who are not going to have work, just for the crime of preaching the Christian gospel, you go to jail at the same time when they're encouraging your kids to do drugs, and not just fentanyl, but weed. Don't raise your hand if you have a 15-year-old son, but come up to me after and tell me what you think of legalized weed. For real. And if you have a 15-year-old son, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They did that to you and to your son on purpose. And so in a country like that, in a world like that, If you think that preaching the gospel is so dangerous that the people who do it need to be in prison in shackles, you're serving someone other than the people of Canada, if you know what I mean.
And he left out that if your government is basically saying that we'll take your kid away from you if you're in a divorce case with them and you don't support their desire to transition, yeah, same.
That's really scary. And I don't care how much they dress it up in the passive-aggressive, self-help language of the modern left. Well, it's really about public safety. Every time I turn on your freaking television shows, everything's about public safety, which is a euphemism for hard-edged fascism, actually. And frankly, I'm a little bit more comfortable with the old-fashioned variety, where guys in tight uniforms goose-step through your town, because at least you know who you're fighting. And you know what's going to take to liberate your town. Get rid of these people and everything will be okay. But when they show up and they're therapists with advanced degrees, and they look at you in the face and say, no, actually, little Dylan just needs more fentanyl. Little Dylan's actually a girl. And we're going to, yes, he's a girl. Sorry, she's a girl. She's a girl. And if you don't agree, well, maybe we may have to remove Dylan to more care-affirming custody. Oh, you're going to take my kids away because I don't want to castrate them. They'll never say that, of course, because clear language is their enemy, because clear language exposes who they really are.
It's a spotlight.
They're not people who are trying to help you. They are people who are trying to hurt you.
Yep.
Anyone who goes after your children, anyone who encourages you to have fewer children is trying to make you extinct. It's literally that simple. And it's only in the advanced West that we don't see that. Try that crap in Bulgaria. Try that in Serbia. How do you think that would fly in Serbia? We're just going to give little Voldak some fentanyl. And we think, you know, he may be, you wouldn't even get to the next sentence before you got shot. Because you're trying to kill someone's kids. And your average Serb, whatever you think of them, doesn't have generations of therapy talk that acts as a logical intermediary in his brain and prevents him from seeing what's actually going on here. They're trying to kill my kids. I'm the father. I won't allow it. I'll lay my life down to prevent it. It's literally that simple.
Protect your kids.
So I'll stop with this. The answer, before you take any sort of action or imagine that some election is going to fix things, comma, which it's not, spoiler alert, because this country, like every country, very much, and maybe especially including my country, has a lot of frauds in that business. Sorry, it does. I would know. It's the one thing I know a lot about. Before any of that takes place, you need to change inside. Your attitudes need to change. And your timidity needs to be replaced by bravery. The muddled thinking that you have about this stuff, the average normal Canadian, just like the average normal American, sees this stuff pop up on his phone or he's on X and he's like, I can't believe it, the world's going to hell. But it's scattershot. There's one here, one there, one there. No, it's not scattershot. It's of a piece. It's of a piece. They're all connected. And it's aimed at you. And if you don't agree, tell me how I'm wrong. But I'm not wrong. I'm right. And so the first thing that you need to do before changing anything in your country is to change everything about your heart. You have to be ready for a contest where the stakes are existential, which they are. And with that, I will stop. Thank you.
There you go. Great job. Great job there, Tucker. All right. I think I've gone through my I've gone through everything here. Let me see. Cover this. That. That. What is this? Cover that. That. Yeah, I think I'm good. All right, my friends, not following the rules sounds like something a leader does. Sounds like something Han Solo would do. Sounds like something Joe Solo. Yeah, but I'm not a leader. In all other respects, it does sound like something I would do, but I'm not a leader. I just play one on TV. All right. That's our show for tonight. Now, I want to give you a heads up. I am not going to be here Saturday night. Will not be doing a show Saturday night. No show Saturday night. I'm going to be on the road. So I'm not going to be doing a show Saturday night. I might be popping in on Layback Law tomorrow. Depends. If so, I'm not sleeping between now and then. So if I sound a little loopy, I'll post that on Locals. You'll find that goodlogic.locals.com if I appear. I'll try to make sure to post something about that on Locals. I told Eric Hunley, I'm sort of in between. But you really need to follow me on goodlogic.locals.com. Otherwise, you might get confused by the schedule. All sorts of confusing things. Next week is January 31st. I'm going to be having a 24-hour freaking stream with tons of guests, tons of jokes, tons of stories. Fani Willis, tons of Fani. And I'm also, one last thing I want to share with you is that I'm likely going to start covering the Crumbly trial on Monday. Likely going to start covering that on Monday. We will see. In which case, I'll probably spend much of January 31st doing that. If you're unfamiliar with this case, the Crumbly trial, the Crumbly trial, they had opening arguments today. This situation is Ethan Crumbly was a kid who basically went Columbine on his school, and the parents are being charged with being responsible for those deaths, criminally charged with being responsible for those deaths. I think 4 kids were killed, in my recollection. I haven't looked in the case in a couple of days, but I will tell you that this is the first time in American history that parents are being charged with a crime that they had no way of knowing they did not know was going to be committed. So there's no claim that they knew. It's just a claim that they were recklessly endangering because they were aware that he had access to a gun or things of that nature. This was argued before the Michigan Supreme Court, and they ended up deciding to allow the case to proceed. And the trial is ongoing, and I expect that I will be streaming that starting Monday. I might do a little bit of a catch up on that on Sunday. I'm due to return from my trip on Sunday, so I might do a little bit of a review of opening arguments and sort of catch up on some of the highlights of the case that started today. Opening arguments were today. Opening statements were today, and as the testimony. So I might be reviewing that on Sunday at some point and try to catch up on that. But that's my schedule. So with all of that, I say to you, my friends, I thank you for joining me and participating here. Charles gets the last word. You got the last word, Charles. Hope it's a good one. What do you got? Is it legal for agreement to be vague and arbitrary in contract law? It seems social media use demonetization is the new demonizing of the outsider. So they're not vague. They're not vague. They just make us sign very adhesive contracts. They're very precise in the contracts that they make us sign, basically saying, first of all, you don't get to sign a contract until they agree to monetize you. So I don't have any contract on with them under that channel. But even when we sign a contract, they're just very one-sided, and you don't get to negotiate them. You just sign it or you don't. So if anything, that could theoretically be deemed a contract of adhesion, but the argument of contract of adhesion basically means I'm forced into this, and the drafting party is the other side, and they made the terms ridiculously onerous. But traditionally in contract law, a claim of contracts of adhesion almost never wins. Almost never. It's like this. It's notoriously weak argument to bring in court. So, good question, but that's the reality of the world. All right, let me make sure I didn't miss anything right here. I think I'm good over here on Rumble, checking locals. I'm good over here on locals. I'm good over here everywhere. So this means it's my time to basically go grab myself some dinner, get ready to head out to an airport. And I say to you, my friends, I hope you all have a phenomenal weekend. A weekend where you get to spend some time with your family, Maybe have a little barbecue or some sledding or whatever it is that suits your fancy. But whatever it is, don't let life get you down. I know sometimes it's very hard. You got Fani Willis, you got all the stuff going on with Trump and all the persecutions. You got fentanyl crisis and the southern border and potential civil war and all that other stuff. Put it out of your mind. Relax. Stay happy. Eat the bugs. And as always, my friends, I say to you, Godspeed.